So yeah, there's these three little pork guys. We're pigs, by the way. And then they're going to live in houses because their mum, she doesn't have enough room in her house for three little piggies, okay?
Hey guys, through this time-lapse video, I'll talk about why setting strong keys is so important for clear, relatable character animation, and how pose-to-pose animating is an efficient way to clearly communicate strong acting choices. I'm using the software called CelAction, but you can use any other software, and the same principles of character acting still apply. Just a small heads up that every time I reference the character's pants, I'm actually referencing a very specific dummy in our character rig. So far, I've already keyed a third of this scene prior to recording so that this video isn't too long. Here you can see that I want to have this incidental animation, so while she's talking, she's kind of scratching her leg with her foot. So if we go back to that, we need to make sure there's weight shift so she can keep her balance. If we draw a line to show where her center of gravity is when in a neutral standing position and then compare that to when she lifts her foot, if we adjust the center of gravity, you can see it lines up directly over her foot bearing the weight. This means her weight is balanced. If we didn't shift her weight and kept her center of gravity in the same place as her neutral pose and just lifted the leg, you can see she's unbalanced. If we tried to replicate this move in real life, we'd fall over. So let's get back to keying our shot. For this section of the character acting piece, I get Jude into a pose and then I want to have her act within that pose. We don't want to have her moving all the time, otherwise it gets exhausting for us to watch. You have to have moments where you hit a pose and you talk within the pose, and maybe there's subtle movements, so there's a little sink down on the body, or she has this one moment where she takes in quite an audible breath. When you get the opportunity to animate these realistic moments, it makes the character extremely engaging to watch. And by animating that pause, it feels reflective of how we move in real life. Great character acting can be in the subtle moments, not always in the over-the-top action sequences. At this stage, I'm only focusing on the key poses. By working pose to pose like this, I can quickly map out the entire performance before worrying about how it moves between the poses. But because you're held on this pose, it's doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And so you need to make sure that it's a clear, readable pose because you're going to be seeing it for quite a period of time. I've got Jude glancing down and talking while she interacts with the ball as a bit of a distraction so that we can break her direct eye contact with the camera. And it seems like she's more considering what she's saying or more deep in thought. Personally, I love animating characters thinking, and I love that in this audio, the voice artist was thinking about what she wanted to say, and so she has this real clear moment of pause. Honestly, capturing this is sometimes the most fun. I'll mention it later on in the video, but I flip a lot between keys, and I actually never use onion skin. I just flip back and forth between my poses.
So yeah, there's these three little pork guys. We're pigs, by the way. And then
So here I actually decide that I'm going to incorporate one of the lessons from my Simply CelAction course, the ball throw task. Just coincidentally, I want to get rid of the ball and stop having her interact with it. So I'm just going to have her chuck it out a shot. Once this ball is out of her hands, then we kind of have a bit more freedom to do some full body acting, full turnaround, maybe get her hands into the acting a little bit more as well. But right now I'm working into the antic, into the ball throw, so she really has to have this dip down. And so this is kind of harping back to the beginning of this video where I talk about the weight shift. We want her weight to shift into the center. It has to pass from one leg to the other as she swings the arm through to let go of the ball. So right now her weight is in between both feet. But what you'll see is the next pose that I add is her weight transfers onto that front leg. As she straightens that leg, her hips have to shift up as her weight shifts across to that front foot. This kind of weight shift is really important for keeping the character feeling grounded and believable. By setting these keys solidly at this stage, it means we won't forget to animate it when it comes to the in-betweens. Something really important to pay attention to as well is your character's eye line. I want her to follow the ball as she releases it. So Jude is still talking throughout all of this, and I need her to come out of the ball throw pose. So using our actions box, I'm using her front turnaround pose, and then I'm working into that, lining up the feet, paying attention to the dip in the pants. I'm going to have her close her eyes on this antic because everything's kind of being squashed down, so it makes sense that you kind of have the eyes closed really tight. I am leaving the hair behind. I want this sense of drag on the fringe and the kind of bun that she's got. And now I'm moving on to the next pose as she exits out of that dip. I'm not too sure exactly what I want her to do. I was going to go for maybe hands on hips, but it felt a bit stiff. So actually, as I work through this pose, I decided, no, you know what? I'm going to actually fling her arms out and give her a little bit of a flourish on those arms. I include a little bit of a step in here, so it's like a mini walk, but she's going to come to quite a quick stop because, again, she actually has another thinking moment. So it's a great combination of two audio pieces in this acting piece. As you watch me work through these keys on the step, you'll notice that there's quite a bit of up and down on the pants. So every time the leg bends, her pants are going to shift down on the y-axis, and when she kind of extends up, then the pants are going to go up. This helps to create a really nice bounce to those couple of steps, and then when she comes to this stop, we're going to have a nice settle moment as she rises into that final pose. And this is where I decide that I am going to add the hands on the hips. And I kind of like that when she comes to a stop, it's a bit more of a stomp stop. Like she really plants that foot nice and hard. So we'll see if I keep that through to the final animation. So now as I start to bring Jude's lower arms in front of her upper arms, and we're going for open hands because she's kind of going to do this wave where her hands go out and then back in, and I'm going to add a head shake at the same time. To get her arms to bend nicely, you have to move those limber bezier control points. I'm going to just pause and highlight them so you can see these are the control points that will move the limber of the arms. So it will help you create better shapes. As I've mentioned previously, Jude is a rig that, she's quite simplified. She's not a rig that has all the bells and whistles. But I think what I like about this is that you get to be clever in how you move the elements and how you can suggest rotation or squash and stretch, and without getting bogged down in technical issues, we're getting the opportunity to focus on the principles of animation, so creating good, strong keys for great character acting. But please remember, it's supposed to be fun. You're meant to enjoy animating. Throughout this scene, you can see that I've put Jude into a pose, and as I mentioned before, I have her act within it. It's a realistic reflection of human interaction. We aren't always moving and gesturing wildly, so we shouldn't do that to our cartoon characters if we want them to be relatable. Subtle head shakes are endearing on cartoons because it's something that we do regularly without even realizing. Here, she kind of perks up. There's the subtle lift in her head. This is still acting within the pose. We're not changing her overall pose in a large way. So now, since I've added our little head shake and she kind of rises up, I really want to put in a bit of a head nod to really emphasize her line. I'm using that little 3-fingered hand shape as she talks about the 3 little pigs. You can see here I've added a slight bend to the knees, and now we're going to have her take like a little step forward. You don't want to have your character's feet locked in place all the time. You don't want them to feel like they are stuck to the floor, because subtle weight shift really emphasizes that the character is alive, or we've tried to make them appear that way. So just as some side information, these 350 frames have taken me 2 hours to key, and working this way means I can move through a large number of frames quickly because the performance is being solved at the key stage. What I'll do now is time myself doing the breakdowns, the in-betweens and the lip sync to prove that the comment I threw out on my CelAction course promo video of being able to get through more frames in CelAction than other programs is accurate. Alright, so here are the final keys.
So yeah, there's these 3 little pork guys. We're pigs, by the way. And then they're going to live in houses because their mum, she doesn't have enough room in her house for 3 little piggies, okay? So yeah, there's these 3 little pork guys. We're pigs, by the way. And then they're going to live in houses because their mum, she doesn't have enough room in her house for 3 little piggies, okay?
So as I went to breakdown and in between the animation, the keys changed slightly. I needed to hit the emphasis of certain words a little bit earlier, and then also I had one too many eye darts or pupil adjusts in one of the thinking poses, so I had to remove that as well. So now I'll play it through once more as just the final animation with the audio to show you the end result. This whole piece took me 4 hours and 15 minutes to animate.
So yeah, there's these 3 little pork guys. We're pigs, by the way. And then they're going to live in houses because their mum, she doesn't have enough room in her house for 3 little piggies, okay?